Good to see everybody again. I'm here to do another video for the Florida State-Alabama game. Want to preview this matchup. And the last video I said I would do a video on the offensive line coach because I talked about the offensive line, obviously. And I wanted to know a little bit more about the coach. I wanted to know, who is this guy? Where is he from? What's his philosophy? What does he do when he's coaching the offensive line? Because, sometimes we like to blame the offensive line and we don't really consider, oh, how's the coach doing? As I mentioned in my video, I wasn't a big fan of Mario Cristobal coaching at Alabama. He was the head coach for the offensive line, but the head coach. He was the offensive line coach for Alabama. And last year we brought in Brent Key, and those guys kind of shared the offensive line duties. Lo and behold, we got better. So we let Mario Cristobal go this offseason. I mean, he got another job, but I was glad to see him go because Brent Key stepped in. So I want to know if the Florida State offensive line struggles because of their offensive line coach, who in this case is Rick Trickett. You may know that last name as his son, Clint Trickett, played quarterback at West Virginia and at Florida State, actually. And he had some success in those last 2 years at West Virginia specifically. But Rick Trickett has been coaching for a long time. He's also the assistant head coach for Florida State along with Jimbo Fisher. So this is going to be an interesting video. I'm going to talk a lot. I'm going to get into some of the players as well in development because as I was looking into him, this guy was very, very interesting, and I just wanted to learn more. So let's jump right into it. Rick Trickett, guess where he is from? If you watch my you watch my head coach profile on Jimbo Fisher, I stated that Nick Saban's from West Virginia, and Jimbo Fisher's from West Virginia. And lo and behold, Rick Trickett is from West Virginia. What is this? Is there like a coaching fraternity for West Virginia guys? Do they all just kind of hang out together and decide, hey, I want to hire you on my team. Come coach for me. You're from West Virginia. I don't know. Either way, West Virginia guy. Apparently, people from West Virginia make good coaches. 69 years old. He's entering his 11th season with Florida State this year. I believe it's his 45th overall season. So congratulations to this guy. Been coaching forever. He's well respected in the coaching profession. Apparently, a lot of people really love him. They respect his offensive line work. They respect how he can get the best out of players. Really interesting guy. One tidbit about his Florida State coaching success, actually, is that all five starters from the 2013 team from Florida State, they all signed NFL contracts. Brian Stork, who's with the Patriots, Cam Irving, who's with the Browns, I believe, Trey Jackson, who's also with the Patriots, Bobby Hart, who's with the New York Giants, and Jose Matias. I don't know where he is, but I know he signed. He was an undrafted free agent, but he also signed. They're all signed to NFL contracts. And not all necessarily starting, but they're all signed to NFL contracts. I think Stork, Irving, and Hart are starting for sure. Not sure about Jackson and Matias. But that's impressive. I mean, obviously he's doing something right up there. Um, and also, he just has an acumen for getting good run blocking for the offensive line. The offensive lines that he coaches do a great job of getting good run blocking. For sure, that's something that you can expect out of a Rick Trickett offensive line. And the reason why I say that, I'm going to go down some of his coaching stops. Of course, he's been on Florida State, but before he was at Florida State, he was the West Virginia offensive line coach from 2001 to 2006. He also was the line coach at Auburn from 1993 to 1998, which is at the same time that Jimbo Fisher was there. So it's obvious that these guys, like working together, apparently. And here's another interesting thing. He followed Jimbo Fisher. Well, I don't know if you followed him, but they went there together to Saban's staff at LSU. He was the assistant head coach and the line coach for Saban at LSU in just the year 2000. Because after the year 2000, he went back home to West Virginia, as I said, and was becoming the offensive line coach at West Virginia. He obviously loves being at home. And before he was at Auburn, he was the line coach at Mississippi State from '89 to '92. And before he was coaching and all that, he was a Marine, which is going to play very, very heavy into like his coaching style apparently. So he went into the Marines. He learned a lot of discipline, a lot of hard work from those guys. They push you hard in the Marines. I don't even want to think about the type of training they had to go through, the type of discipline needed to be a Marine. Uh, but that really shows in his way of coaching, and I'll explain that as I get down the list here. But first of all, just some more tidbits on him. He's well respected for his recruiting as well. He does a great job of recruiting guys, bringing them in. Um, a lot of players that he has coached have gone on to the NFL. I believe it's over 35 players that he's coached has gone to the NFL. Um, that's getting close. That's getting close to almost one a year. And if you average it out, not necessarily every year that he coaches a guy goes to the NFL, but if you average it out, it's almost to one a year. I would say like zero point 0.7 or something like that. Whatever 35 divided by 45 is, that'll be your answer. But so that's not bad. So apparently he's doing something right somewhere, over the years at least. Um, where was I gonna go next? Oh yeah. So this is the interesting thing. He coaches really hard. That is something that you'll hear a lot of his former players say. Some guys have even left the team from various places because he coached so hard that they just couldn't get along. One of the starkest examples of that is Matt Hardrick. Some of you Florida State fans may remember that. He was there in 2007. He was a highly touted recruit from Edgewater High School. A lot of you may know that place because they produced a lot of talent. They were a powerhouse at the time. I don't know how they're doing right now, but Matt Hardrick came from there, and him and Rick Trickett just didn't get along. He ended up being dismissed from the team by Bobby Bowden for violation of team rules. But I'm pretty sure a part of that dismissal was because him and Rick Trickett just couldn't get going. He lost weight. He was a big guy, so he wanted to be slimmer, fitter. Because Rick Trickett likes the slimmer and more athletic offensive linemen. That helps his scheme out. But they just never clicked, and he rode him a little bit, and Hardrick, and they just kind of bashed on each other. And the interesting thing is that because he coaches so hard, Bobby Bowden had to tell him to tone it down a bit. And Trickett said that advice was good for him, actually. He learned something from that. A lot of his players end up saying that he mellowed out a little bit. Some would say he really didn't mellow out. He just trusted some of his players a little bit more, certain offensive lines more than others. But yeah, apparently Marines can be pushy. The way they learn. But and kind of backing up some of that, the hard coaching thing. Bobby Hart, the one who's with the Giants right now, he says he had to think twice. One or two times he had to think twice about would he like to continue to play football, or at least play for Rick Trickett, because of how hard and how much Rick Trickett demanded of him. And he had to do that a couple of times, and a lot of guys do that. And some guys don't like it, and they leave, like I said. So it doesn't work with everybody, that style of coaching, but it's worked with enough to make some success here. The goal, I'll wait before I get there. Also, a lot of you may remember this name, Willie Anderson, who played tackle at Auburn, and he was coached. He was there from 93 to 95, at the same time that Trickett was there. And, he went on to have a great NFL career. He learned a lot from Trickett. He really loved Trickett's style. It didn't bother him as much. He never felt like Trickett crossed the line, but he understands why some players wouldn't like it, because Trickett was just very in your face and a lot of cursing, and it was at the time especially. He may have toned that down a little bit now. But Willie Anderson said Trickett's goal was to get the line to dislike him so much that they bonded together over their dislike of him, and that allowed them to play better. So that shows you just how intense Rick Trickett really is. He really gets into their face, and he will break them down in front of everyone in practice. That was his style. He would get in your face, yell at you, and make sure everyone knows how bad of a job you're doing. They hated going to the film sessions on Sunday after the game because that kept you humble. You knew that he was going to break down how you're doing, what assignments you missed, and how that affected the game. So it's a very hard coaching style. So that just lays the groundwork. And with all of that, you see, he's stuck with Auburn. He's stuck with West Virginia. And that West Virginia at the time, he helped produce a lot of those great rushing attacks. A lot of you may not remember, or some of you do, but Pat White and Steve Slayton, those West Virginia teams, They were running the ball, and they were like top 15 a lot of years. They were top 5 some years. They had the #2 rushing offense in 2006, I believe, under him. He did a great job of just pushing those guys and pushing those lines and getting a lot out of them. So he's done good. I'll give him that, especially. And like I said, especially in the running game. 2015 season on the offensive line, a lot of people talk that the offensive line for Florida State, it wasn't that great. But in terms of running the ball, at least, they had Dalvin Cook get was 1,600 yards that year, I believe. And they got 1,000 yards in 2014. So he knows what he's doing, and he has a lot of experience. He even wrote a book. He wrote a book on how to get the best technique for your offensive line. It was released in 2012. Now, with that being said, you say, well, the guy seems like a great coach. Everybody respects him. He recruits really well, apparently. Why has Florida State struggled with the offensive line then? That is a good question. I've done some research here. I'm going to leave some of the links in the description box so you can go look at them. But I'll jump into it. There's a lot of factors that contribute to why lines don't play well or why players don't play well in general. But first of all, I'm going to break down the depth chart in recruiting over the last few years since 2012. So I'll start there. In 2012, Florida State only signed 2 offensive linemen. They only signed 2 offensive linemen that year. Menelik Watson, or Menelik, however you say his name, I don't know, and Daniel Glauser. They both were JUCO prospects, and they both only played 1 year. That's a bad sign, and this is the reason why. We're going to keep going forward. So 2 guys, and they only played 1 year. So the next year, 2013, they signed 4 linemen. 4. Okay, so you're like, okay, better. They replaced the 2 they lost, and they got 2 more. And they lost guys to graduation, of course. It was Denson, who was a 4-star recruit, Kleppel, Hofeld, and Wilson Bell, who's still on the team, by the way. And Wilson Bell's still on the team. But here's the thing about this class. Denson was dismissed from the team. So there's 1 out of 4. Kleppel had concussions, and he never could really get going. So that's 2 out of 4. They no longer played. That only left Hofeld and Bell from this class, and both of them were eventually surpassed on the depth chart by other players. So out of the 2013 class, you have 4 of them signed, 2 of them are gone, and 2 of them are like bench players. And Wilson Bell's actually, he came in, he's like trying to get around a little bit, so not completely, but that's a bad sign for depth-wise. Out of 2 years, you only have 2 offensive linemen, 2012 and 13. That set the depth chart back really, really bad. You need a lot of bodies on the offensive line to build depth and chemistry, to know which guys play well with each other, which is why Nick Saban's always recruiting linemen. Now, it got better in 2014, and this is why they signed 8 offensive linemen in 2014. 8. And just to backtrack a little bit, remember 2013 offensive line was really, really good, the 5 starters? Well, when you don't sign a lot of linemen in that same year, you can't get the guys behind those great starters to get depth and experience, so your next line, it may struggle, which is what you start to see 2 or 3 years down the line. But here we go, back to the 2014 line. 8 signed. 8 offensive linemen signed, and a lot of these guys are actually on the team right now. They redshirted, they got experience, they built depth. But there's Kareem Ari, who's a starter last year, who was out with an injury this spring. Alec Eberle, who was a starter last year at center, who has some inconsistency, but he was a starter. And he's injured this spring as well with a hip injury, so that's kind of bad. So knee for Ari, hip for Eberle, but they're still on the team, and these guys made an impact. And you have Martinez, who's a backup center. You have Brock Rubel, who surpassed Rick Leonard as right tackle this spring. So Brock Rubel, who's now contributing at right tackle. You have Derek Kelly, who played a little bit last year at guard. And you have Frith, who is a backup tackle, but is now playing a little bit at guard in the spring. All of these guys were in the 2014 class, and they're all looking to make a contribution this year. And this shows you something. Offensive linemen need time to develop in order to contribute. These guys were signed in 2014. They're making a big impact in 2016 and now 17. So you need about 2 or 3 years to develop. It shows why they struggled in 2015 and 16. That's one of the reasons why they were struggling, I believe. And other reasons too, just inconsistencies, which may fall on Rick Trickett, but that's another question. Now, moving on. So they got some guys. They got 8 linemen. That was a good thing. They need to build the depth back up, but those guys weren't ready to play yet. That's why 2015 season was kind of here or there. And they signed 3 offensive linemen in 2015, which turns to another issue, but not so much because they signed 8 last year. But here's why it could be a problem: injuries and guys not panning out, which sort of kind of happened. They signed Bello, but he had a knee injury that first year, which kind of set him back a little bit. They signed Minshew, who, as you know, got to play a bit last year and it actually helped out, and he's now working at guard a little bit in the spring while some guys are injured. So that actually worked out well for them. But he dealt with concussions as well, so that's something to look out for. And then they have Robbins, David Robbins, who they also signed. He's still on the team, but he's not making much of a factor right now. Like I said, sometimes they need more time to develop. So they got 2 guys from this class. That'll be good if they both can stay and make contributions. Otherwise, they lose depth from that year. 2016, this last year, had the #1 recruiting class for offensive linemen in the nation. They signed 6 guys, and I believe 4 of those were 4-stars. So they finally started to make more stars. So you're starting to see Rick Trickett, I guess, recruit again. I guess in the previous year, he wasn't able to bring in a lot of these guys. They weren't getting as many 5-stars, but to be fair, 5-star offensive linemen are not as prevalent as you would think they are. They're very rare, but they're starting to get higher level recruits of linemen, which many people thought Rick Trickett would already be doing, but they kind of weren't doing as well there as you would expect from a coach who is well respected as he is. Like I said, that may have come back to like his coaching style, which is why Bobby Bowden may have said tone it down a bit. But 6 signed in the 2016 class. 3 of those guys are pushing for time. Landon Dickerson is already starting, but he's injured this offseason. Like I said, they deal with injuries too. Injuries. Bavion Johnson from this class, who redshirted, he may be starting center this year if Everly doesn't come back well enough from his injury and isn't consistent when he comes back. And then Josh Ball, who also redshirted, he's looking like he's going to be the starting left tackle this year. So that 2016 class is making an immediate impact. So they develop really fast. So I'm seeing now maybe Rick Trickett had a little bit offensive line coach and FSU had a little bad luck. Guys from 2014 to 15 there, those 2 classes and 13 classes, just a disaster. They got injured. They weren't ready. It took them a while to develop, and now they're coming along. And Trickett wasn't able to kind of get them all together, but now it seems like the 2016 class, they bought in a little bit more. Those guys from 2014 are now rounding out, it seems. And so we'll see what happens. They were still inconsistent at times last year. So some of that falls on the players. Some of that falls on Trickett. Maybe that he needs to change up the coaching style. But all in all, they still, like I said, he's been known for his run blocking. They were a better run blocking unit last year than they were as a pass blocking unit, which you would expect. Some of that goes on Francois. Some of that's not all on the offensive line, actually. Sometimes it was missed assignments by running backs and tight ends. But that's just the way it goes. So here's what I have to say about these last 3 recruiting classes. 2014, so 14, 15, and 16, they had to make up for the depth that they lost from the bad recruiting classes of 2012 and 13. But not bad overall classes, but bad offensive line recruiting class. So 14 guys, they seem to be developing well. Like I said, a lot of those guys are still on the team. There's 8 linemen signed, and they're all contributing. They seem to be developing well. Who knows how good they'll be or how consistent they'll be? That's another question. The 2015 class, these guys are struggling a bit. Not really starting. They're trying to push. Well, at least Minshew is. Other guys are. Yeah. And the 2016 class, it looks promising in terms of at least these guys stepping up. We don't know how they'll play, but in terms of like moving ahead on the depth chart, these 16 guys are making a push. So they have bodies now. They have a lot of players now. They're starting to fill in depth. And unfortunately, some of these guys are getting injured still. So, but they have guys who can step into place. It's just about whether or not Trickett can get the most out of these guys, whether they'll respond to his style of coaching well, and we'll see how that works out for them in the opening game of season against Alabama. So this is my video on Rick Trickett. I did not expect this video to get to 20 minutes, or at least close to it. But thank you for sticking with me all the way if you did. I appreciate it. Let me know what you think about the Florida State offensive line situation and head coach Rick Trickett. Let me know what you think about Rick Trickett. You know, do you think he's a really good coach? Do you think he's worth it? What do you like about his style? Do you think these players are going to be ready for the season? You know, whatever you have to say as a Florida State fan, I want to hear it. And Alabama fans as well, chime in. Let me know what you're expecting. Um, Maybe some matchups that you like to see. Uh, Thanks for paying attention. I'll see you on the next video. Most likely, I will do Florida State's wide receivers coach because we're going to talk about the wide receiver situation. Thanks.